Grand Admiral Krell Voss stood tall and unyielding upon the command deck of the Harbinger, his six-fingered hands resting behind his back as he observed the grand spectacle before him. Spread across the vastness of space was the full might of the Hegemony fleet, 3,000 warships gleaming under distant suns and carrying 17 million troops poised for invasion. The panoramic viewport, spanning nearly 30 meters, offered a clear view of the force he had meticulously assembled. Oh, constellation of power ready to bring another world under hegemony control. It is beautiful. He remarked, his voice low and filled with a satisfaction born of absolute certainty. Commander LX-10 approached cautiously from behind a clipboard in her mechanical hands, yet Voss did not bother to turn to face her. His gaze remained locked on the fleet, spread like jewels across the blackness. 3,000 warships, he repeated, 17 million troops, enough firepower to shatter a small moon, and we are about to use it all on one insignificant little dirt ball. LX-10 cleared her throat, a habit she had adopted while studying the customs of the target species. Sir, the Supreme Council is requesting your final assessment before authorization. Of course they are. Voss sighed, irritation flickering across his ridged face. Heaven forbid the Council make a decision without 17 layers of bureaucratic approval. He turned slightly, his towering frame, almost 8 feet tall, by Excellion standards, gleaming in the soft lights of the bridge. His polished exoskeletal plates reflected the gleam of nearby consoles. Patch them through to my private chamber, Voss ordered, and tell Fleet Captain Dorax to stop repositioning the dreadnoughts. If he moves them one more time, I will have him cleaning waste processors with his tongue appendages. Yes. Admiral LX Chas replied with a slight bow, suppressing the faintest smile. Dorax was notorious for his obsession with formation, aesthetics, often wasting hours adjusting ship positions by mere kilometers, even when such adjustments had no tactical relevance. Voss stalked off toward his private chamber, his steps measured and deliberate. The bridge crew avoided his gaze. Focusing intently on their work, none dared risk drawing the ire of a commander whose reputation for creative punishments was as legendary as his undefeated campaign record. The door to the chamber hissed open, revealing a sparse room dominated by a circular hollow table. Voss placed his palm on the biometric scanner, and the images of the 5 Supreme Counselors materialized in shimmering detail around the table. Their ornate robes and elaborately decorated head frills were almost laughable to Voss, who valued efficiency over spectacle counselors. Voss said, offering the barest nod required by protocol, "To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" Counselor Zen spoke first, her head frills trembling with a nervous energy we have received concerning intelligence regarding the human species. Voss chuckled dismissively. Concerning, he echoed incredulously. These humans have not even unified their planet. They squabble over imaginary lines on a map and invisible sky gods. Their weapons could not even scratch the armor of our scout ships. Nevertheless, rumbled Counselor V, his massive form shifting uncomfortably. Our xenopsychologists have flagged several warning indicators in their behavioral patterns, such as, Voss asked, his voice steeped in disdain, unpredictability, remarkable adaptability, and an unsettling willingness to employ scorched earth tactics rather than surrender. V said, his compound eyes blinking in sequence, a clear sign of unease. They destroy their own resources to deny them to an enemy. Voss waved a hand through the hologram dismissively. All species fight harder when cornered. That is basic xenobiology. Once we demonstrate our overwhelming force, they will capitulate like every rational species before them. And if they are not rational, Counselor, Maya asked softly, her translucent skin almost fully clear with age, revealing the intricate network of veins beneath, then they will die. Voss answered simply, either way, their world becomes ours. Their resources become ours. and their system becomes another entry in the glorious expansion of the hegemony. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances, but Voss had seen such hesitation before. Politicians always fretted about morality when decisive action was required. The invasion fleet is ready. Voss continued, my strategic assessment remains unchanged. Total conquest within 3 standard cycles. Minimal casualties on our side. Acceptable destruction of infrastructure. Very well, Admiral Zen said, after a long pause. May the Void Mothers guide your path, they always do. Voss replied curtly, terminating the connection without the customary farewells. As the holograms vanished, he turned back toward the viewport, a thin, satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Another world, another victory, another medal to add to his collection if only he had known what awaited him. Outside the Harbinger, the fleet hung in perfect formation warships, from dozens of hegemony races operating in seamless coordination. Each ship carried enough firepower to annihilate entire cities from orbit without warning. The invasion had been planned down to the finest detail, simulations run trillions of times until success was virtually guaranteed. The humans would never know what hit them. Commander Extage returned to the bridge as Voss re-entered the command deck. Sir All. Fleets, report. Ready and awaiting your signal. Excellent, Voss said, settling into his command chair. The upholstery molded to fit his armored form as he activated the fleet. Wide channel, attention all units. He began, his voice steady and commanding. Our objective is the complete pacification of the 3rd planet of the Sol system, known to its inhabitants as Earth. Resistance is expected to be fierce in isolated pockets, but disorganized and ultimately futile. Primary targets are military installations, government centers, and communication hubs. Civilian population centers are secondary concerns. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Remember, we are not here to annihilate, but to conquer. We require their labor force and their resources. Minimized collateral damage is preferred, though not mandatory. A chorus of acknowledgments filled the channel. Initiate operation. Dawnfall. Voss commanded. The bridge lights dimmed as tactical displays flared to life. The fleet moved as one massive, engines igniting in silent synchrony, pushing the armada toward the small blue-green world below. Voss leaned back, savoring the moment. The conquest of Earth would be a swift, brutal lesson to any other species foolish enough to resist the hegemony, a fitting addition to his legacy. The planet grew larger in the viewport, clouds swirling over oceans and continents, tiny flashes of primitive lightning storms painting the atmosphere. The humans had no idea. Their doom approached from the stars. Reports from the first wave came in swiftly. Scout ships encountered only minimal resistance. Human defensive satellites easily neutralized by precision energy strikes. A few outdated missile systems attempted to engage, but were intercepted and destroyed before reaching effective range. Sporadic ground-based anti-air efforts proved equally ineffectual. The humans were unprepared. As expected, within hours, key military installations across the major continents were reduced to rubble. Human communication networks were disrupted, regional governments thrown into chaos. Panic gripped the population exactly as projected. Still, Voss noted with clinical interest that the humans displayed a tenacity not common among lesser species. Pockets of resistance formed quickly, bands of soldiers and civilians alike rallying to defend their territories. It was admirable, in a primitive sort of way, but ultimately irrelevant. Commander LX-10 approached Sir initial objectives, achieved with less than 0.1% fleet casualties. Excellent, Voss said, rising from his chair. Prepare the second wave, full deployment, planetary occupation, protocols. He gazed once more at the planet beneath them, a world on the cusp of subjugation, a world that did not yet know it had already fallen. Voss allowed himself a rare moment of reflection as the Harbinger descended into the upper atmosphere to oversee ground operations personally. The conquest of Earth would be recorded in the annals of hegemony history, another testament to the superiority of their race. He would stand atop the ruins of their capitals, accept their leaders' surrender, and raise the hegemony banner over a conquered world. It was inevitable, unavoidable, predetermined. The humans had no chance. And so, with supreme confidence and unshakable pride, Grand Admiral Krell Voss led the might of the hegemony down toward Earth, believing with every fiber of his being that he was about to add another broken world to his growing empire. Unaware that the true battle had not even begun, the invasion of Earth began not with overwhelming force, but with a simple act of human defiance. It was not part of any grand strategy, nor was it intended to repel an enemy so far beyond human technology that their existence seemed almost godlike. It started instead with a missile. A relic by galactic standards, but a missile nonetheless, fired by men and women who refused to stand idle while strange ships drifted across their skies. Fleet Intelligence Officer Nara Pax stood before the gathered command staff aboard the Harbinger, her voice calm and professional as she narrated the footage replaying above the briefing table. "This, ladies and gentlemen," she said, gesturing at the grainy video, "is how first contact actually happened. Not with diplomacy or cultural exchange, but with fire and iron." The footage showed primitive human missiles spiraling upward into the atmosphere, leaving contrails of smoke in their wake. The sleek recon vessels of the hegemony easily outmaneuvered the projectiles, their advanced sensors and propulsion systems rendering the human weapons laughably ineffective. But the intent behind those missiles was clear to all present. Typical primitive paranoia. Fleet Captain Dorax muttered, his facial tendrils curling in disdain. "See threat, attack, threat. No communication attempt. No effort to understand, only violence." Voss leaned forward, resting his heavy forearms on the table. "And our response?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. Pax hesitated a fraction of a second. Scout Commander THX may have overreacted, she admitted carefully. The video shifted, showing a sharp pivot of one of the recon vessels. It discharged a single pulse of searing energy. The human launch site vanished in an instant, obliterated in a white, hot explosion that left nothing but scorched earth and a crater of glass. Overreacted Voss repeated, his voice dangerously calm. "Vaporizing their installation." In response to a missile that posed no real threat, Pax spoke quickly, trying to explain. "In his defense, sir, the humans were broadcasting increasingly hostile transmissions. We had only partially decoded their languages, but the tone was unmistakably aggressive." Commander LX-10 stepped forward, tapping a control pad to shift the display. The hologram showed an audio file. "This is Colonel Frank Matthews of the United Earth Defense Command. Identify yourselves immediately, or face defensive action." Voss arched a brow. "Ridge, that was it," he said. "That was what provoked the Scout to reveal our presence and escalate the situation. There were additional transmissions," Pax said hurriedly. 47 of them escalating in hostility. Scout Commander THX reported that their electromagnetic targeting systems had begun locking on his vessel. Voss rubbed a hand along his cranial ridges, a sign of mounting frustration. So, instead of retreating or attempting proper communication, he chose to announce our presence to the entire species by leveling a military installation. Brilliant, a heavy silence fell over the room. "Where is THX now?" Voss finally asked. "En route to the Harbinger, sir," LX-10 answered. "He should arrive within the hour," Good Voss said quietly. "Send him directly to Disciplinary Chamber 3. Several officers around the table flinched. Chamber 3 was reserved for the gravest failures, and it was engineered specifically to contain screams. The council wanted a smooth transition. Voss growled, pacing the length of the table. A swift display of force, followed by quick surrender. Minimal infrastructure damage. Now, thanks to THX incompetence, The humans are aware of our existence. They have time to prepare, however feeble their preparations might be. Actually, Sir Pax said, bringing up another series of transmissions, something peculiar happened after the incident. The holographic display shifted, showing intercepted human communications. Earth's networks had erupted in chaos. Military alerts, emergency protocols, mass panic. But then within 48 hours, the chatter had largely disappeared. Their militaries remain on high alert, Pax explained, but their civilian populations have returned to normal activities. No mass panic, no ongoing public awareness campaigns. They are suppressing information to avoid panic, Dorak suggested. No LX-10. Said something else is happening. Their behavioral patterns do not align with any known threat response models. Voss studied the display, frowning deeply. Whatever they are planning, it will not matter. The invasion proceeds on schedule, Scout. Commander THX will be dealt with, and Earth will fall like every world before it. He dismissed the meeting with a sharp gesture, leaving the staff to their duties. Yet as he stalked back toward the command bridge, a strange unease gnawed at the back of his mind. The humans had seen the threat. They had reacted violently, then calmly, silently, and that silence was more troubling than any scream could have been. As the Harbinger entered low orbit, Earth loomed large in the viewport, swirling with white, clouds, and vast blue oceans. The target sites for the first strike phase lit up on the tactical displays like crimson beacons. Human military bases, communication centers, and government facilities were all identified and prioritized. LX-10 stood beside him, waiting for his signal. Execute first strike protocol, Voss ordered. The Harbinger unleashed its might. Precise energy beams lanced through the atmosphere, striking targets with surgical precision. Cities shuddered under the bombardment, but many civilian areas were carefully avoided. The Council had insisted on preserving infrastructure and labor resources. Reports came flooding in. Target Alpha neutralized. Target Beta destroyed. Resistance minimal. Voss nodded, satisfied. So far, everything was proceeding according to plan. He allowed himself a brief moment of pride. On the ground, human forces scrambled to respond. Their jets and helicopters took to the skies, brave but utterly outclassed. Their missiles and guns fired defiantly into the heavens, but they barely scratched the shields of the hegemony craft. Still they fought. Pockets of resistance formed, scattered and disorganized, but tenacious. Their courage was admirable, if foolish. From his vantage point in the command center, Voss watched the battlefield unfold. Each human effort noted and categorized, each act of defiance crushed with efficient brutality. Within hours, the hegemony controlled major urban centers across 2 continents. Military bases burned. Communication hubs fell silent. Victory was inevitable. Yet amid the triumph, Voss could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans should have been panicking, flooding their airwaves with cries for help and despair. Instead, they were methodically coordinating their defenses, even amid catastrophic losses. LX-10 approached again, holding a new report. Sir Preliminary Analysis indicates multiple human units are shifting their tactics, employing guerrilla methods, hit-and-run attacks, targeting our supply lines, and communication arrays. Voss waved the report away. Pointless. Their efforts only delay the inevitable. Our reinforcements outnumber them 10-1. Perhaps, Sir LX-10 said carefully, but their actions suggest deliberate strategy, not random desperation. Voss did not respond immediately. Instead, he stared down at the swirling planet beneath them and wondered just how much of their enemy he had yet to understand. Meanwhile, on the surface, in the ruins of a shattered military base, a lone human officer adjusted her broken radio equipment, sending out a signal on frequencies the hegemony would not detect. She spoke calmly and clearly. The invaders have taken the bait. She said, Phase 2 is green. I repeat, Phase 2 is green. Across Earth, Deep within mountains, hidden in forests, and buried beneath the oceans, silent forces stirred carefully. Prepared planes springing into motion, humanity had not been conquered. They had been provoked, and they were ready to respond. The first shot of the war had been fired, and, against all odds, it had been fired by Earth. And deep aboard the Harbinger Grand, Admiral Krell, Voss continued to believe the humans were already defeated, unaware that the true battle had just begun. In the days that followed the first strikes, the command deck of the Harbinger remained a hub of controlled chaos. Reports streamed in from across the planet confirming swift victories. Hegemony forces had taken major cities, crippled government facilities, and neutralized communication networks. The humans had fought, but their resistance was scattered and disorganized, exactly as predicted. Grand Admiral Krell Voss watched the progress with growing satisfaction. 70% of Earth's critical infrastructure was under hegemony control within 3 standard cycles. Casualties among his forces were negligible. Only isolated pockets of resistance remained, and even those would be crushed in time. Sector 17 reports complete pacification. Admiral announced Lieutenant Gra from his monitoring station. Minimal civilian casualties, as per your directives. Excellent, Voss replied, nodding appreciatively. His voice carried the smug confidence of a conqueror, ignoring the minor detail that he personally cared little for civilian preservation. That had been a council mandate. Something about future labor, utilization, and resource management. Fleet officers surrounded him, basking in the glow of easy victory. Some laughed openly at the primitive defenses they had encountered, poking fun at the outdated weapons and amateurish military tactics. The bridge hummed with a sense of inevitable triumph. Yet not everyone shared in the celebration. Commander LX-10 remained at her post, her eyes fixed on a secondary tactical display, tracking resistance movements across the planet. Her expression was neutral, but her hands moved quickly across her console, highlighting certain anomalies. Something troubling you? Commander Voss asked, noticing her silence amid the chorus of sycophancy. A pattern anomaly, sir, she said, cautiously. I have been analyzing the resistance activities, and there are discrepancies that do not align with expected models. Voss waved his hand dismissively. Their resistance amounts to pointing primitive projectile weapons and praying. Hardly worth the attention of the Supreme Commander. Yes, Sir LX-10 agreed. But in some regions particularly, these 12 zones, she highlighted portions of the planetary map the humans are employing. Asymmetric tactics, well beyond their technological level. They are striking supply lines, communication hubs, and sensor arrays with remarkable precision. Voss frowned, the edges of his mandibles twitching slightly. Casualties. Minimal on both sides, sir. They are not trying to destroy us outright. They are systematically degrading our operational effectiveness, disabling key systems without mass engagements or large-scale battles. Cowardly tactics, Dorax sneered from across the command deck. They know they cannot win in direct confrontation, so they scurry around. Like vermin, perhaps LX-10 conceded. But their coordination is far greater than what we would expect, given their disrupted communication networks. They strike quickly, inflict precise damage, and disappear before reinforcements can respond. The timing and execution suggest a level of strategic planning that exceeds all projections. Voss stared at the map, his tactical mind beginning to churn beneath the surface. Bravado. Interesting but ultimately irrelevant. He concluded, they may delay us in certain sectors, but they cannot alter the outcome. Look there. He gestured toward the primary display. Another human militia has surrendered in Sector 23. Their leaders are realizing the futility of resistance. His mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. They break so easily, these humans apply enough pressure, and their vaunted courage crumbles into dust. LX-10 nodded, but her eyes returned to her screen. A faint crease of concern furrowed her brow. The pieces of the puzzle were not fitting together. Something was happening beneath the surface of the invasion. Something that standard models had not anticipated. "Prepare my shuttle." Voss said suddenly, "I wish to inspect our primary processing center personally. It is time I saw these humans up close." At once, Sir LX-10 responded, and the bridge crew scrambled to execute the order. Within hours, Voss descended to Processing Center Alpha, established in what had once been a significant human military installation in a region they called Colorado Springs. The facility had been repurposed with brutal efficiency. Captured humans were sorted, categorized, and assigned to various fates: labor extraction, scientific study, or disposal. Voss strode through the holding pens, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the prisoners. They shrank back at his presence, eyes wide with fear. "Smaller than I expected," he remarked to Major Krell, the officer in charge. "Fragile-looking, lively, resilient," Krell corrected respectfully. "Their musculature is dense and their environmental tolerances are higher than anticipated. We have had to adjust containment protocols twice." Voss stopped before a particular cell, where a solitary human female sat perfectly still, watching him with unnerving intensity. Unlike the others, she did not flinch or rage, she simply stared. "This one, why is she isolated?" Voss asked. Former military Major Krell replied, "Based on uniform, remnants, high escape risk, disabled 2 guards during processing." "With what weapons?" "None, sir, bare hands." Voss studied her more carefully. She was not physically imposing, perhaps 5.5 feet tall with short dark hair, but there was something in her gaze, something cold and calculating. A patience he recognized from apex predators. "Has she been interrogated?" "Extensively, sir." She only repeats a single phrase. "The quiet ones are coming." Voss frowned. Slight religious reference. "Unknown, sir. However, we have recorded 17 other instances of the same phrase from unrelated prisoners across different zones, always spoken with the same certainty." Before Voss could inquire further, his communication implant buzzed urgently. Commander LX-10's voice came through tense and hurried. "Sir, coordinated attacks are unfolding across all occupied territories. Unlike previous resistance actions, these are highly synchronized and specifically targeting command personnel. Report." Voss barked, pressing a control on his wrist communicator. 13 regional commanders confirmed DID within the last 20 minutes. Dozens more unaccounted for. The pattern suggests simultaneous strikes despite communication blackouts. Voss turned away from the cell just in time to see the faintest smile cross the human's lips. "Emergency Protocol 7, he ordered. "Secure all command staff triple guard rotations." The lights went out, plunging the facility into sudden darkness. Emergency backups failed. In the pitch blackness, Voss heard something he had not heard in decades. Gasps of surprise from his own elite guards when the lights flickered. Back on the cell was empty, so were 12 others adjacent to it. Scrawled in blood across the wall were the words, "Round 1 to us." Voss felt a cold rage settle over him, a cold unlike any void of space. "How is this possible?" He demanded, each word slow and deliberate, a clear sign to all present that his fury had entered a realm beyond shouting. The command deck of the Harbinger grew heavy with fear as tactical displays began blinking. Red ground outposts, silent supply depots, under attack forward bases, ceasing transmission. 17% of our ground forces unresponsive. LX-10 reported, her voice detached despite the chaos. 23% actively engaged or retreating. "We have lost contact with all 5 planetary command centers, sir." "All 5, Voss." Repeated each word, like a stone dropping into deep water. Within 12 minutes, Fleet Captain Dorax stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Admiral, we must consider tactical withdrawal, Voss hissed, rounding on Dorax with such violence that the captain physically stumbled back. "From primitives with projectile weapons, I would sooner eat my own spawn." Sir Pax, the intelligence officer, interjected. "Preliminary analysis suggests they have cracked our communication protocols. They are broadcasting false orders using near-perfect replications of our voices. Impossible. Voss said through gritted mandibles. Quantum-locked communications cannot be decrypted without biological key signatures. And yet, LX-10 said softly, bringing up a holographic analysis. Here is your voice authorization code detected across 17 channels simultaneously. Voss stared at the projection, his mind racing faster than ever before. How long until reinforcements arrive? 6 standard cycles at minimum, Dorax replied. Assuming they received our signal before satellite loss, withdraw all ground forces to defensible positions. Establish physical verification, communication protocols, prepare the Void Strike arsenal. A stunned silence fell across the command deck. Sir Elchbein said Void Strike weapons are prohibited except in extinction-level scenarios. The Council is not here, Voss snarled, pointing at the displays where yet another base fell dark. The humans are not fighting back. They are hunting us. He barely finished speaking before the emergency alarms blared again. Multiple breaches in the lower engineering deck, Sir. Impossible. We are in high orbit. Confirmed, sir. Security feeds showed something unthinkable. Humans in containment suits had boarded the Harbinger. Voss stood frozen, genuine disbelief washing over him. How did they reach us? The tactical display flickered and changed. A human face filled the screen. Dark skin, sharp eyes, full of unrelenting focus. Grand Admiral Krell Voss, the woman said, I am General Maya Rivera of the United Earth Defense Force. Consider this message our formal response to your invasion. Behind her stood others wearing cobbled-together hegemony armor. Your technology is impressive. Rivera continued, we especially like the neural interfaces. Very intuitive. The camera panned to reveal her location, the Harbinger's reactor control room. Round 2, she said softly, to us. The screen went dark. Deep within the Harbinger, explosions began tearing through the flagship as Voss and his surviving officers fled for their lives. Above Earth, amid the stars, they had once sought to conquer the mighty Harbinger, died in flames. And for the first time in 1,000 cycles, Grand Admiral Krell Voss knew the bitter taste of fear. The sky above Earth was no longer a silent witness to conquest. It had become a battleground, a shifting, chaotic arena where survival demanded ingenuity and resilience. The initial hegemony victories had been swift, brutal, and seemingly complete. Yet beneath the surface of shattered cities and smoldering bases, a different war had begun, one that Grand Admiral Krell Voss and his fleet had not anticipated. As the Harbinger burned in orbit, Voss and his remaining officers crowded into evacuation shuttles, the emergency systems groaning under the strain of their hasty retreat. Fewer than 40 officers remained from the original 200. The majority had perished in the explosions that ripped through the flagship, their bodies vaporized before alarms could even register. Inside the cramped shuttle, Voss stood amid the survivors, his expression carved from cold stone. Commander LX-1, her arm slung uselessly at her side from a human projectile wound, struggled to maintain composure despite the pain. Status report. Voss demanded, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. Commander LX-10 accessed the limited tactical systems. 37 capital ships confirmed, destroyed over 300 support vessels unaccounted for. Ground forces report 70% casualties or mass surrender. Voss clenched his fists, the joints of his exoskeleton grinding together. A lifetime of victories undone in a matter of days by a species he had dismissed as primitive. Sir Pax said, speaking carefully, I believe I have identified their strategy. Voss turned to her, his gaze sharp as a blade. Pax held up a datapad displaying intercepted human communications. Their transmissions date back before first contact, she said. Their intelligence agencies detected our scout ships months ago. Instead of reacting immediately, they began preparing silently, systematically. She tapped the screen, bringing up fragmentary files labeled with human military classifications. They analyzed the technology they recovered from damaged scout ships. They studied our communication patterns. They prepared their population through what they called fiction, entertainment. But it was actually covert training disguised as media. That is absurd. Dorax interrupted. No species prepares for an alien invasion they have never experienced. That is exactly what they did. Pax insisted. They allowed us to land, allowed us to establish command centers. They let us believe we were winning while they quietly positioned assets for a global counterstrike. Voss felt the weight of realization settle onto his chest, cold and heavy, like a slab of stone. He saw it now, every easy victory, every surrendered stronghold, a calculated trap luring the hegemony deeper into a prepared battlefield. Why not defend immediately? LX-10 asked, her voice strained. Because Voss answered, his voice hollow. They needed us committed. They needed us deployed and vulnerable. He laughed once, a dry, humorless sound. We followed standard invasion protocols. We gave them a perfect map of our operations and vulnerabilities. The shuttle communication system crackled, overriding their encrypted channels. A human voice came through, calm and unhurried. Attention, Celian forces. This is Dr. Elena Reyes of the United Earth Psychological Operations Division. By now, you have realized your tactical situation is untenable. The officers exchanged horrified glances. We are tracking all 137 of your evacuation craft. Dr. Reyes continued. We could destroy them, but we will not. Voss stared at the comms panel, unable to believe the humans had not only survived, but now held complete control of the battlefield. Grand Admiral Voss, the human voice said, with a casual certainty that sent shivers through the surviving officers. We want you to return home. We want you to deliver our message personally to your Supreme Council. The shuttle viewport activated, displaying a scene outside. Flanking them were human interceptor craft, primitive in design, yet clearly equipped with hegemony technology salvaged and repurposed. We have already captured the remainder of your command forces, Dr. Reyes continued. You may land peacefully or we will forcibly escort you. Land the shuttle, Voss ordered, his voice devoid of any former authority. Sir LX-10 protested. They will capture us immediately. They have already captured us, Voss said bitterly, gesturing toward the view outside. The only choice we have left is how much dignity we retain. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, heading for a sprawling human complex surrounded by tanks and soldiers, weapons trained but not firing. The ramp hissed open. Voss stepped out first, back straight, shoulders squared, refusing to show weakness. He would not give these primitives the satisfaction of seeing him cower. Waiting at the base of the ramp was a small delegation of humans. General Maya Rivera stood at the forefront, flanked by Dr. Reyes and 3 others, including Admiral James Chen, a former head of Pacific Defense Command. Welcome to Earth, General Rivera said without bowing or offering any sign of deference. You have won a temporary victory, Voss said flatly. The hegemony has 17 more battle fleets. When they learn of our defeat, they will come. No, they will not, Admiral Chen said firmly. Voss narrowed his eyes. We know everything about your people, Dr. Reyes said smoothly. We have been inside your central databases for 72 hours. We know your strategies, your chain of command, your psychological profiles. Impossible, Voss whispered. Those systems are isolated, protected by quantum encryption, were isolated, corrected. Marcus Webb stepping forward. A civilian by appearance, he carried himself with quiet confidence. Your cybersecurity is predictable, logical, linear. You built your defenses like you built your fleets, strong but inflexible. We think differently. Captain Olivia Blackwood emerged from the line, her presence commanding even without weapons. Thank you for visiting our processing center personally, she said. Your biometric data was the final key we needed. Voss fought to maintain his composure, but he could feel the cracks forming. The implications were staggering. What have you done? he asked Dr. Reyes. Produced a device clearly of Excellion manufacture. This, she said, tapping the device is your quantum entanglement communicator, linked directly to your Supreme Council's emergency channels. With a few simple commands, she activated it. You should hear this, she said gently, handing the device to Voss. The voice of Counselor Jen came through the receiver, broken and hollow. Admiral Voss, the Supreme Council, has received the human transmission. We are initiating Severance Protocol Earth and its system are now classified as Quarantine Zone Omega. May the Void Mothers forgive us for what we have awakened. The transmission cut off, leaving only silence. Voss stared at the device in his hand, the finality of the Council's words sinking into his bones. What did you send them? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The truth, General Rivera, answered, her smile both kind and merciless. 3 standard cycles passed. Voss found himself confined to a modest suite on the hegemony homeworld. No imprisonment, no execution. The Council had made it clear he would live as a warning, compiling a report on the Earth debacle for future generations. Most unsettling. Counselor Maya said during her first and only visit, "You conclude that humans represent a new classification of sentient species. It is the only logical conclusion." Voss replied, "They do not. Think like us, not even close." He displayed footage captured during the brief war. Humans fighting with improvised weapons, sacrificing themselves for tactical advantages, employing chaotic, unpredictable tactics that somehow, when viewed from afar, revealed a coherent, devastating strategy. Their information systems, Voss continued displaying schematics of Earth's decentralized networks, function more like a living organism than a structured hierarchy. Sever a major node, and they simply reroute around it. Seamlessly, when we disrupted their primary communications, they adapted faster than our analysts could model. When we severed their logistics, they rebuilt new ones almost overnight, using methods we still do not fully comprehend. The quarantine must hold forever, Mia whispered, her skin almost translucent with fear. It will not matter. Voss said, you did not see them up close. They adapt instantly, and they improve everything they touch. He pulled up the final transmission Earth had sent to the Supreme Council. It showed human engineers disassembling hegemony faster than light drives, studying them, enhancing them, redesigning them within days. We gave them 100 cycles of technological advancement in a single week. Voss said, his voice breaking, and they have already surpassed our understanding. Maya drew back, visibly shaken. The final image filled the screen. A new human starship constructed from salvaged hegemony parts, prepared for launch, its engines glowing with a light that no Excellions engineer could explain. They are coming, Voss said, not for revenge, not for conquest, but because that is what they do. They explore, they expand, they evolve. He looked out the window at the stars glittering cold and distant over the hegemony homeworld. Earth was never their prison. He whispered, it was their incubator, and we showed them the universe. As if in answer, every communication device across the hegemony activated simultaneously. A calm human voice filled the air. People of the galactic hegemony. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Exploration Vessel Prometheus. We have received your declaration of quarantine. We have chosen to respectfully decline it. Our fleet will arrive in your core systems in approximately 30 standard days. We come in peace and look forward to establishing productive relations. There was a pause, then laughter. Bright, clear, and utterly terrifying. And across the thousands of worlds of the hegemony, every citizen, every leader, every warrior held their breath, waiting for the quiet ones to arrive. The day the humans struck back in full was not marked by any grand announcement or orchestrated battle. It was marked instead by the sudden, inexplicable collapse of hegemony control across Earth's surface. Grand Admiral Krell Voss had retreated to the temporary command ship, his pride buried under layers of shock and disbelief. The Council had abandoned him. The reinforcements would not come. And all around him, the mighty forces of the hegemony were unraveling at a pace no one could have foreseen. The first indication came as a sharp spike in encrypted human transmissions across the supposedly pacified territories. Commander LX-10 was the first to notice it, downloading the data streams in secret while the bridge crew remained focused on external threats. Within hours, communication relays that had seemed secure began to fail. Forward operating bases went silent. Mid-level commanders simply vanished from their posts with no distress calls, no alarms, just a series of broken links across the network. Voss watched in mounting horror as tactical displays began to light up red indicators flashing wherever human forces were making precision strikes. Earth's resistance had transformed from scattered guerrilla skirmishes to a synchronized global offensive. Reports flooded in regional command centers, destroyed simultaneously. Logistics hubs annihilated from within supply lines, severed troop morale, collapsing civilians. Once cowed and compliant, now rose up armed with whatever weapons they could scavenge. Sir Commander LX-10 said calmly, "Despite the chaos, our own communication protocols have been compromised. They are using falsified command codes to issue counter orders to our forces. We are losing control faster than projections can update." Voss slammed his clawed hand against the console, a rare display of uncontrolled rage. How is this possible? Our quantum encryption cannot be broken without access to biological key signatures. And yet it has been done, Sir LX-10 said. Simply, Voss turned to face his battered officers, the remnants of his once proud fleet, Captain Dorak's intelligence officer Pax, and a handful of others. They had fought bravely. But bravery meant little when faced with an enemy who refused to fight on predictable terms. "What is our current planetary hold?" Voss demanded. "Less than 30%, Sir Pax answered. "Ground forces are surrendering en masse." Sir Commander LX Ewan added, "We have intercepted another transmission from Earth's United Defense Command. It appears they have not only captured many of our officers, but have also reverse-engineered parts of our technology." Voss closed his eyes briefly, fighting down the wave of anger and fear threatening to consume him every step of the invasion. Every victory had been a part of the humans' larger plan, a baited trap laid by primitives who had studied their invaders with terrifying thoroughness. Then the final blow struck. The tactical display flickered and shifted from maps of battlefields to the interior of the Harbinger. A human face filled the screen. A woman dark-skinned with piercing eyes, General Maya Rivera again. "Grand Admiral Voss," she said calmly, "you have fought bravely. You have fought predictably. We thank you for your lessons." Behind her stood squads of human soldiers wearing salvaged hegemony combat armor adapted for their use. The camera panned to reveal the Harbinger's primary reactor control room, deep within the supposedly secure flagship. Now fully under human control. "Round 2. To us," General Rivera said with a small smile devoid of mockery. The feed cut, and almost immediately, alarms shrieked throughout the command vessel. Explosions blossomed across critical systems. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut in a futile attempt to contain the cascading failures. Voss gave one last look at the tactical displays, already darkening, and issued the only command left to him: abandon ship. The few remaining officers obeyed without hesitation, flooding toward the escape shuttles as the Harbinger tore itself apart from the inside. The shuttle rides through the atmosphere were turbulent, chaotic streaks of fire across a sky no longer owned by the hegemony Voss, and his officers could do nothing but watch as their once invincible fleet burned and fell into the oceans and deserts of Earth. As their shuttle descended, the extent of the human counteroffensive became impossible to ignore. Entire battalions of hegemony soldiers were rounded up, herded like cattle by coordinated units of human forces, using a mixture of primitive and salvaged advanced weaponry. Forward operating bases were either abandoned or now flew the crude yet defiant flags of human resistance cells. Upon landing at a secure location, Voss stepped out onto the broken earth to face the grim reality. Humans were not fighting to repel the invaders anymore. They were systematically eradicating them. Captured officers were already being processed by human psychological operations teams. Their demeanor was shockingly calm, compliant, almost as if the humans had found ways to neutralize Excellian combat instincts without overt violence. Every step Voss took was one further into the realization that this war was not merely lost. It had never truly been winnable. General Rivera awaited him at the edge of the landing zone, accompanied by Dr. Elena Reyes and Admiral James Chen. Their faces were devoid of smugness, only a grim sense of purpose. "You should know something," General Rivera said as Voss approached. "This was never about victory in the traditional sense. We knew we could not match your firepower or your technology at first, so we attacked the one thing. You could not protect your predictability." Voss said nothing. He had no arguments left to make. "You invaded thinking we were primitives." Admiral Chen added, "You saw our outdated weapons, our fractured governments, our chaotic communications. What you failed to see was the way we think, the way we adapt." Dr. Reyes stepped forward, holding up a data device. "You see, we learned. From every encounter, every defeat, every probe and scan you made, we mapped your strategies, your communication protocols, your very psychology. We used your strengths against you until you became your own worst enemy." Voss felt his knees weaken, but he forced himself to stand tall. In another lifetime, he might have admired the humans. Now he could only fear them. "We have not destroyed you," General Rivera said calmly. "We have not sought your extinction. We have merely removed your ability to harm us again." Voss looked past her, to where human engineers were already dismantling salvaged hegemony tech. Their movements efficient, methodical adapting technology, designed by species millions of years older, in a matter of weeks. It was not conquest. It was evolution at an accelerated pace. And the humans were accelerating beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. One of the human soldiers approached quietly, whispering something to Rivera. She nodded, then turned back to Voss. "Your shuttle has been prepared. Admiral," she said, "you and your officers are free to return to your council and deliver what message?" Voss asked, his voice low and hollow. Dr. Reyes answered for her. "The truth. Across Earth, human cities battered but unbroken began to rebuild. Communications networks adapted to operate on decentralized frequencies beyond hegemony. Interference factories, once used to produce consumer goods, shifted overnight to manufacturing hybrid technologies, blending human ingenuity with alien design. In orbit, the shattered remains of the Harbinger were already being salvaged by teams of human workers. Engines, weapons reactors, all being studied, disassembled and reassembled into something new, something terrifying in its potential. And across the stars, the echoes of humanity's first true war against an alien invader spread like wildfire, reaching worlds that had long believed themselves safe from the chaos and violence of primitive species. They learned the terrible truth that Earth had never been weak, merely dormant, waiting for the catalyst that would ignite a firestorm of change. As the shuttle carrying Voss and his surviving officers broke free of Earth's atmosphere, he looked down at the blue-green world below. It no longer appeared small or insignificant. It loomed vast and unknowable. A world of survivors, fighters, and now, victors. The Council would never believe the full story. He barely believed it himself. Earth had not merely repelled an invasion. It had evolved from it, transcended. It turned it into the foundation of something new and unstoppable. The humans would not be content to rebuild what had been broken. They would push outward, expanding into the stars with a hunger and ferocity, born from millennia of struggle and survival. And they would remember. Voss closed his eyes as the stars stretched into lines around the shuttle. He knew without doubt that wherever the hegemony fled, wherever they hid, eventually the humans would find them. Not for vengeance, not for conquest, but simply because that was what humanity did. They explored, they adapted, they survived. And now they thrived. 3 standard cycles had passed since Grand Admiral Krell Voss had returned to the hegemony homeworld. His arrival had been met not with ceremony nor punishment, but with an eerie silence. The Council had already seen the reports, seen the footage, witnessed firsthand the disaster unfolding across Earth. They needed no trial. Voss had been ordered to compile a full account of the failed invasion, to study it, to understand it, and most of all to warn others. He sat alone in a modest chamber, deep within the central archives. The walls were lined with data interfaces, but the room was otherwise bare. It was a cell in all but name. Hours turned into days, days into cycles. Voss pored over intercepted communications, battle footage after action reports, and human transmissions. What emerged from his study was not a story of military failure or tactical miscalculation. It was something far worse, something fundamentally terrifying. Commander Maya entered the room without announcement, her translucent skin showing more stress with each visit. "The Council has reviewed your preliminary findings," she said, without preamble. Her voice carried an edge of dread. Most unsettling. Voss did not rise from his seat. He merely gestured at the displays around him. "I have only scratched the surface," he said quietly. "The more I study them, the more certain I become." He brought up a series of hollow projections showing human engagements against the hegemony forces, isolated battles, where small groups of humans used primitive weapons to disable or capture forces that outgunned them 10-1. In some cases, they fought using nothing but salvaged equipment, improvised tactics, and sheer determination. "They do not behave like any species we have ever encountered," Voss said. His voice was calm, but the tremor beneath it betrayed him. "Their strategic models are non-linear. Their reaction times are beyond statistical expectations. Their social structures are redundant, flexible, adaptive." He changed the projection to show schematics of Earth's communication networks. "Decentralized, redundant," Voss said again. "Like a living organism, sever a major node, and the system simply reroutes around the damage faster than we can respond." Mia watched in silence, her neural clusters pulsing visibly. "When we severed their primary communication systems," Voss continued, "they adapted within hours. They re-established contact using methods we do not even fully understand to this day. Underground fiber optic relays, ad hoc satellite networks, even low-frequency, long-wave transmissions once thought obsolete." He tapped the console, bringing up images of human salvage teams dismantling the remains of hegemony vessels, salvaging technology once thought far beyond them. "Look," Voss said, "this footage was taken less than 1 cycle after our defeat. They are not just studying our technology, they are improving it. Their engineers took apart faster than light drives that we considered cutting edge, and within days began building prototypes that outperform ours." Maya stepped back as if physically struck. "How is that possible?" she whispered. Voss leaned back, his exoskeletal plates clicking softly. "Humans do not merely learn, they adapt at an accelerating pace. Every defeat, every challenge, every bit of adversity makes them stronger, faster, more resilient." He paused, bringing up the final transmission sent from Earth to the Supreme Council, a recording of human engineers integrating hegemony technology into entirely new designs, weapons, ships, energy systems, operating on principles still not fully understood by hegemony science. "You must understand," Voss said, "they are not evolving on a generational scale. They are evolving in real time. Adapting to every new input, every threat, every opportunity, he turned to face her fully now. His gaze hollow and tired. Earth was never their prison. May. It was their incubator. The silence that followed was oppressive. After a long moment, Mia found her voice. "The quarantine must be absolute," she said quietly. "They must be contained." Voss shook his head slowly. "It will not matter. We exposed them to the larger universe. We showed them technologies and possibilities they had not yet imagined. We taught them how to reach the stars." He changed the display again, this time showing a human-constructed starship. It was built from salvaged parts of hegemony vessels, hybridized with human ingenuity, sleek, deadly, and bearing no resemblance to any ship ever seen in the known galaxy. "They are coming," Voss said. "Not for revenge, not for conquest, but because that is what they do. They explore, they expand, they evolve." As if summoned by his words, every communication device within the archive chamber activated simultaneously. Security overrides, triggered alarms, and warning lights flickered into life. The message was simple, delivered in the same calm, unshakable voice that had haunted his dreams since Earth people. "Of the galactic hegemony, this is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Exploration Vessel Prometheus. We have received your declaration of quarantine. We have chosen to respectfully decline it. Our fleet will be arriving in your core systems in approximately 30 standard days. We come in peace and look forward to establishing more productive relations." There was a brief pause, followed by soft human laughter. Voss stood frozen, listening as the weight of the message settled over him. Like the slow, inevitable shifting of a tectonic plate, the future itself was moving, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. "They are not invaders," Voss whispered to no one. "They are inevitability across 17,000 worlds." The hegemony held its breath, waiting, watching, praying, because the quiet ones were coming, and this time, nothing would stop them. The message spread across the galaxy like a silent storm. An entire civilization braced itself against the coming tide. 17,000 worlds, stations, and colonies of the hegemony paused in their routines and turned their eyes to the stars, every mind weighed down by the same unspoken question: what happens when the quiet ones arrive on the surface of the hegemony homeworld? Grand Admiral Krell, Voss, now stripped of rank and title, sat in his quarters, watching the final preparations unfold from a distance. There was no denying the reality. Now ships of human design, but unmistakably hybridized with salvaged hegemony technology, were preparing to depart from Earth. Their silhouettes on the intelligence feeds were not crude copies. They were something else entirely. Sleek vessels shaped by a different philosophy, one that prioritized adaptability, speed, and resilience over the rigid military doctrines the hegemony had clung to for millennia. The humans had not merely caught up, they had surpassed. Voss stood by the observation window, staring into the void beyond the atmosphere. He wondered if any warnings would matter now, if anything he or the Council could say would make a difference. The galaxy was no longer the orderly realm of the hegemony. It had become something wild and unpredictable, a new frontier where survival would depend not on tradition, but on evolution. Inside the council chamber, Councilor Maya addressed the gathered leaders, her voice stripped of any false confidence. "We have attempted to reinforce our outer defenses," she said. "We have redirected entire fleets toward the core systems. We have initiated full technological lockdown protocols, but it is unlikely these measures will be sufficient." She gestured to the holographic display in the center of the chamber. The image of a human fleet approaching hyperspace thresholds materialized. "Units are moving faster than anticipated," she continued. "Their navigation systems have bypassed our standard interdiction fields entirely. The prediction models suggest they will arrive within 29 standard days." Murmurs of fear rippled through the council. Voss remained silent at the back of the chamber, knowing any words he offered would only confirm the despair already blooming in their minds. The council had reviewed his full report. They knew what he had concluded about the humans and about the catastrophic miscalculation that had been made in underestimating them. They adapt instantly. Voss had written, they improve without hesitation. They cooperate across vast distances with minimal coordination. Their strength lies not in superior firepower, nor numbers, but in an unrelenting drive to survive and to overcome. In every recorded case where humans had faced an existential threat, they had not only survived, they had emerged stronger and more dangerous than before. The evidence was overwhelming. The humans had treated the invasion of their world not as a war to be won, but as a test to be endured. And from that crucible, they had emerged tempered and unstoppable. Counselor Zen shifted nervously, her head frills twitching. Our diplomatic channels remain open, she said, perhaps hoping against reason that communication might offer salvation. We could attempt negotiation. Voss thought grimly. There might have been a time when that was possible. Perhaps if the hegemony had come as explorers rather than conquerors. Perhaps if the invasion had never happened, but the opportunity had long passed. The humans were coming, and they carried with them a memory of every slight, every loss, every indignity suffered under the hegemony's arrogance. But they were not coming for revenge. That was not their way. They were coming because they had outgrown the limitations Earth once imposed on them. They were coming because expansion and exploration were written into their very nature. In the data streams Voss had intercepted after the collapse of the invasion, he had found countless references to an old human phrase used to describe the essence of their spirit. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It was not a threat, it was a promise. Across the galaxy, preparations intensified. Fleets were repositioned, fortifications reinforced, the hegemony mobilized with a speed and desperation unseen in centuries. Yet deep down, they all knew it was futile. The humans had already demonstrated an ability to bypass their most secure systems, to dismantle their strongest defenses from within, to adapt to every countermeasure thrown against them faster than anyone could model. Even the most sophisticated hegemony AI constructs could not keep pace with the chaotic brilliance of human innovation. Voss watched silently as the first human ships entered hyperspace, flickering out of sight with an almost casual inevitability. Somewhere out there at the edge of known space, the quiet ones were moving, not with rage or hatred, but with purpose and certainty. They would reach the core worlds. They would see the towering spires of the hegemony capital. They would walk among the ancient halls of power that had once ruled unchallenged over thousands of systems, and they would bring change. Voss did not know what form that change would take. Would the humans destroy the hegemony utterly? Would they absorb it, remaking its institutions in their own image? Would they find allies among the old enemies of the hegemony, uniting them under a new banner? He suspected it would be none of those things exactly. Humans rarely followed the paths others expected. They would carve a new path altogether. One no existing model could predict, one shaped by the same restless hunger that had driven them to the stars in the first place. Voss turned away from the window, his thoughts heavy but strangely calm. For the first time in cycles, he felt no fear. Only a deep, profound acceptance the age of the hegemony was over. The age of humanity had begun, and somewhere deep in the silence of space, carried by ships faster and stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, the quiet ones came onward, unwavering, unstoppable, carrying with them not conquest nor destruction, but something far more disruptive and enduring: hope and change. Across the galaxy, change was unfolding so vast and so inevitable that even the oldest civilizations could not ignore it. The hegemony, which had once ruled uncontested, found itself grappling with a force it had neither anticipated nor prepared for. Humanity had risen from its once isolated cradle, and now moved among the stars with a purpose that defied all conventional models. On distant worlds, where once the banners of the hegemony had flown, there were now human outposts, small at first, but growing rapidly. What began as simple salvage missions quickly evolved into the establishment of thriving colonies, blending Earth technology with the remnants of hegemony infrastructure. Each new settlement was a testament to human adaptability and determination, a reminder that the species once confined to a single world had embraced the universe with open arms and an unbreakable will. Grand Admiral Krell. Voss no longer bore any title of authority, but he still observed from the shadows. His exile had not stripped him of his intellect, nor his ability to see what others refused to acknowledge. He watched the expansion unfold, not with bitterness, but with a grim sort of admiration. Humanity was not content to simply survive. They sought to understand, to improve, to integrate everything they encountered. It was not domination they sought. It was mastery over the chaos of existence itself. In the core systems, news of human expeditions arriving on former hegemony worlds spread rapidly. In places where the local populations had long suffered under the rigid structures of hegemony rule, the arrival of humans was not met with fear, but with cautious hope. Unlike the conquerors of old, the humans came offering partnerships, not subjugation. They repaired failing infrastructures, restored devastated environments, and brought new technologies that revitalized stagnant economies. Yet their generosity was never weakness. Every action was calculated, measured. Humans were quick to offer aid, but quicker still to defend themselves when threatened. The memory of their swift and brutal defense of Earth lingered in every negotiation room, in every council chamber across the galaxy. In hidden research stations, human scientists continued their relentless study of salvaged hegemony technology, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. Faster than light travel, once the exclusive domain of ancient civilizations, became commonplace among human fleets. Quantum communication, once the envy of the galaxy, now formed the backbone of an expanding human network that connected worlds across impossible distances. It became clear to all observers that humanity was not just participating in galactic affairs, they were reshaping them. Admiral James Chen, now one of the senior figures in the United Earth Exploration Command, addressed a gathering of newly allied species from across the former hegemony territories. His message was simple and clear. Humanity had no intention of establishing an empire, no intention of replicating the mistakes of those who had come before. Instead, they sought cooperation, mutual growth, and the protection of all sentient life against the dangers that lurked beyond the known regions of space. It was a vision that resonated deeply with many. Those who had suffered under hegemony rule saw in humanity a chance for something different, not perfect, but better. However, not all welcomed the change. Some remnants of the old hegemony leadership, now exiled to the edges of known space, plotted quietly, nursing ambitions of revenge. Yet even they could not deny the fundamental truth. Humanity was no longer a fledgling species to be dominated or dismissed. They were a force unto themselves. On Earth, massive construction projects reshaped the surface, and the skies above new shipyards rose from the ruins of old cities. Vast orbital platforms circled the planet, brimming with activity. Every day new vessels launched into the void, not as weapons of conquest, but as vessels of exploration and discovery. Human culture, too, began to evolve, blending traditions from thousands of backgrounds into a new shared identity, forged by struggle and tempered by victory. A species that had once fought wars over the smallest of differences now stood united under a simple, unyielding principle: adapt, evolve, overcome. Voss spent his days in quiet contemplation, compiling a personal chronicle of what he had witnessed. His writings were not a plea for redemption, nor a bitter recounting of defeat. They were a testament to a truth he had come to understand too late. The strength of humanity lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their spirit, time. And again they had faced annihilation, and time and again they had risen stronger than before. As the cycles passed, new human expeditions pushed further into uncharted space mapping systems, long abandoned exploring relics of civilizations that had vanished before the hegemony itself had risen. In every sector where a human ship appeared, the message was the same: we come to explore, we come to learn, we come to build. And they did. In the council chambers of surviving hegemony worlds, debates raged. Would it be better to resist or to adapt to the new reality? Most chose the latter, seeing in humanity a chance to be part of something greater than the stagnant empires of old still. Voss knew in his heart that the true test had not yet come. Humanity had proven themselves on a single world and against a single enemy. The galaxy, however, was vast and full of dangers far more ancient and terrible than anything the hegemony had ever faced. But if there was one certainty, it was this: humanity would not run from the challenges ahead. They would not cower before the unknown. They would meet it head-on, as they always had, with courage, with ingenuity, and with an unyielding will to survive and to thrive from the ashes of conquest. Humanity had forged a new destiny, not just for themselves, but perhaps for all sentient life. And across the stars, wherever the Quiet Ones passed, hope began to bloom once more. The human fleet moved outward from Earth with a purpose that resonated through every ship, every engine burn, every whispered transmission across the void. They were no longer a people bound by one world. They had become something new, something vast and unpredictable, something the galaxy had not seen in countless millennia. As the Prometheus and its sister vessels pushed beyond the boundaries of the known hegemony systems, the true scope of their ambition became clear. Humanity was not merely interested in expanding for its own sake. They sought to explore, to understand, and to master the unknown. The first new worlds they encountered bore scars of ancient conflicts. Planets left barren by wars so old that even the hegemony archives held only fragmented records. Some of these places were nothing more than radioactive wastelands. Others showed signs of life slowly returning, stubborn and persistent in the face of devastation. Human teams moved swiftly, establishing research stations and observation posts. Their scientists worked alongside former hegemony specialists, those who had chosen to align themselves with the Quiet Ones, drawn by the promise of a future not built on conquest, but on discovery. Admiral James Chen oversaw the establishment of the first permanent human outpost beyond Earth's sphere of influence, named Horizon Reach. It was a symbol of what humanity could accomplish, a beacon to every world, still wondering what the future might hold under the Quiet Ones' watch at Horizon. Reach construction crews worked tirelessly, building structures that blended human engineering with salvaged hegemony technologies. The result was a place that was uniquely their own, a fusion of resilience, adaptability, and vision. Within months, the outpost was fully operational, transmitting a steady stream of data back to Earth and to the newly formed United Earth Exploration Command. Humans were mapping anomalies, cataloging unknown species, and documenting relics of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before humanity had even learned to sail the oceans of their own world. But exploration brought new challenges, challenges for which even the most adaptable minds could not always prepare. It began with subtle signs, deep space monitoring, stations detecting gravitational anomalies that could not be explained by known celestial bodies. Pulses of radiation, unlike any known stellar event, patterns in the cosmic background that suggested vast structures moving. In the darkness, Commander Olivia Blackwood led the first recon mission into the source of one of these anomalies. She and her team piloted a small scout vessel, outfitted with the latest hybrid tech, stealth fields, energy dampeners, and quantum communication relays. For days, they drifted through the cold emptiness, navigating through fields of ancient debris and dead stars, until at last, they saw it. A structure massive beyond comprehension, suspended between two dead suns, its surface blacker than the void itself, absorbing every trace of light. It was not natural, not shaped by any known hand, living or otherwise. Its geometry defied the laws of physics, twisting and folding in ways that made the mind ache to comprehend. The scout ship recorded everything, transmitting bursts of data back to Horizon Reach, before withdrawing, carefully avoiding detection, if such a thing was even possible. When the data was reviewed back at the outpost, the implications shook even the most hardened veterans. This was not just a relic of a dead civilization. It was a living artifact, a piece of technology or biology so ancient and so powerful that it had survived when entire empires had crumbled into dust, and it was not alone. Other anomalies began appearing across the mapped sectors, suggesting that whatever had created the structure had once spanned the galaxy. The Council on Earth convened immediately, bringing together the best minds of humanity and their new allies. Debate raged fiercely. Should humanity approach these relics, attempt to study them, or avoid them entirely, lest they awaken something better? Left undisturbed, Admiral Chen argued for caution, stressing that survival must always be the priority. Humanity had only just begun to establish itself on the galactic stage. It would be foolish to risk everything now by provoking unknown forces. Others, including Commander Blackwood, argued that exploration was humanity's destiny. That fear must not be allowed to dictate their future. Humanity had faced the unknown before, and had always found a way to endure, to learn to evolve. Grand Admiral Voss, though technically still in exile, was invited to offer his insights. His words carried weight even now. You must understand, he said quietly, addressing the Council from a secure chamber. The hegemony believed itself unassailable, invincible, and yet it fell to you because it had forgotten the most important truth. The universe is not static. It is alive. It is dangerous. It rewards those who adapt and destroys those who grow complacent. He looked directly into the feed, his eyes hollow but his voice steady. If you seek to survive, if you seek to thrive, you must not turn away from what you have found. You must face it. Learn from it, master it, or it will master you. In the end, the Council voted. Humanity would continue its explorations, but with strict protocols, layered security measures, multiple fail-safes, independent communication networks. Each step forward would be deliberate and careful, but it would be forward nonetheless. And so, the first human expedition beyond the frontier was launched, a fleet of exploration vessels, accompanied by research teams, soldiers, and diplomats. Each one prepared not for conquest, nor even for colonization, but for understanding. The ships bore names that spoke to the spirit of the mission. Endeavor, Dauntless, Pathfinder. Resolution, names chosen not to inspire fear, but to embody the will to persist, to seek, to know. As the fleet slipped into the unknown, passing beyond the last markers of mapped space, every human aboard felt the weight of history pressing against them. They were not just representatives of Earth anymore. They were the vanguard of a new age, a species unbound by fear, unbroken by defeat, unshackled by the past. Above them, the stars blazed bright and endless, beckoning them onward into a future shaped not by destiny, but by their own hands. And somewhere out there, beyond sight, beyond knowledge, something ancient stirred, watching as the quiet ones approached. The Deep Space Expedition moved silently through the void, the vast darkness pressing against the hulls of their vessels like a living thing. The crew of the Prometheus, led by Commander Olivia Blackwood, had spent weeks navigating the outer reaches of the charted sectors, passing long dead stars and drifting relics of civilizations forgotten by time. Then the anomaly appeared. It was unlike anything they had previously encountered, a region of space where the very fabric of reality seemed to ripple and distort. Instruments malfunctioned, communications grew erratic, sensors registered readings that defied every known scientific principle. Yet through the confusion, there was one constant, a signal faint but deliberate broadcasting from within the distortion, Blackwood ordered the fleet to hold position. She and a small team would investigate personally, taking the Prometheus into the heart of the anomaly, while the others maintained a safe distance. As the ship entered the disturbance, the view outside, shifted stars stretched and twisted into impossible shapes, the blackness itself seeming to pulse with an alien rhythm. The Prometheus moved forward with cautious precision, every system strained to the limit by the unnatural forces surrounding them. Finally, they saw it. Floating in the center of the distortion was a structure vast beyond comprehension, an ancient station or vessel, its design utterly alien. Its surface shifted, as if it were alive patterns, flowing across it in slow, hypnotic waves. Commander Blackwood stared at it through the reinforced viewport, her instincts screaming caution and awe in equal measure. This was not a remnant of the hegemony, nor of any known galactic civilization. This was something older, deeper connected to forces humanity had only begun to glimpse. A landing team was assembled, composed of scientists, soldiers, and specialists, outfitted with the best technology humanity could produce. They crossed the threshold into the alien structure, the docking bay, yawning, open as if inviting them inside. The interior defied all logic walls that seemed to breathe corridors that stretched and contracted as they walked, lights that flickered in patterns almost resembling thought. It became clear almost immediately that the structure was not abandoned. It was dormant, waiting. At the heart of the complex they found it, a being suspended within a containment field of energy so dense that their instruments could barely penetrate it. It was neither mechanical nor organic by any human standard, a form that shifted between states seeming to exist partially outside the normal dimensions of space and time. The being awoke. It did not move in a way that could be understood, nor did it speak in any traditional sense. Yet across every communication channel, every neural implant, every sensory receptor, a presence made itself known. It observed them, curious and indifferent, ancient beyond reckoning. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then a flood of images, thoughts, and impressions washed over the team. Not words, but concepts, vast ideas that dwarfed human comprehension. Fragments of histories spanning eons, battles fought between forces so immense that stars were used as weapons. Blackwood staggered under the weight of the visions, but she stood firm, her mind reaching out, not with aggression nor fear, but with something else. Curiosity, respect, recognition. The presence seemed to hesitate. Then it withdrew, folding back into itself, as if considering humanity was acknowledged but not understood, not yet trusted, but not dismissed either. A single impression remained as the being receded: grow. The team withdrew carefully, returning to the Prometheus, which retreated from the anomaly at best possible speed. Once clear, they re-established contact with the fleet, transmitting the data and experiences they had gathered. The encounter shook the United Earth Exploration Command to its core. The Council debated for months, analyzing every fragment of data, every scrap of sensory information. In the end, they reached a consensus. Humanity had been given a warning, or perhaps an invitation. The universe was far older and stranger than they had ever dared to imagine, and they were not alone. But they were seen, and that mattered. On Earth and across the new human colonies, a shift began, a deeper focus, not just on expansion, but on preparation. On understanding, the Quiet Ones continued to move outward, but now with even greater purpose. They sought not just territory, but knowledge, not just survival, but growth in every sense of the word. The lesson was clear, and it was one humanity had always carried within its blood. Adapt or perish, learn or be forgotten. Dare or die in silence. Commander Olivia Blackwood reflected on this as she stood once more at the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching distant stars wheel across the void. She thought about Earth, about its long, brutal history, about the countless times humanity had been pushed to the brink only to rise, stronger, fiercer, more determined. She realized that what made humanity different was not their technology or their strength. It was their refusal to yield their unbreakable spirit, the relentless drive to move forward no matter the odds. The same spirit that had seen them through wars, famines, disasters, and now through the collapse of the hegemony itself. The same spirit that would carry them into the unknown future. In the end, the true enemy was never the darkness nor the ancient beings that slumbered among the stars. It was stagnation. It was fear. And as long as humanity remembered that as long as they dared to dream beyond their limitations, they would not only survive, they would thrive from a single world of oceans and storms they had risen. Now the stars themselves awaited, not as a final frontier, but as a beginning. And so, the quiet ones pressed onward into the infinite night, bringing with them the oldest and truest light of all hope.